Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the role of media in elections. This is our second class that we're going as we get into our political process unit. We're going to discuss how the media plays a huge role in our elections. Specifically, the media plays four main roles in our elections. Essentially, what that means is this is what the media does. And our media is our news organizations, whether it's on television, radio, the internet, etc. Again, they play four main roles in our elections. So let's take a look at what those four are. The first one is that they identify our candidates. They specifically showcase each candidate. They host debates. They have a variety of different ways that they show us who these candidates are. The media also investigates them, talks about their previous experiences, and highlights their stances on different issues. So the first one is they identify the candidates. The second thing that the media does is they emphasize selected issues. They showcase the different issues, where our politicians stand on them. They highlight them, bring them to our attention, inform us as much as they possibly can for us and what the issues are. The third thing that they do is publish their opinions through writing what we call editorials or political cartoons or op-ed pieces. These are different ways that the newspapers or internet sites or the news television stations showcase their opinions on what's going on in the political world. You can tell that oftentimes by the bias that they demonstrate with their opinions. Here's an example as well of an editorial. This is the Washington Post endorsing Tim Kaine for the U.S. Senate. They tell us why. Here's a nice political cartoon. A tidal wave of deficit unemployment and illegal immigration is washing over the SS November, which is when we vote. We have the elephant and the donkey in the boat. They also, and this is number 4, broadcast different points of view. Again, here's a political cartoon showcasing this guy's looking at a boat, saying a boat. And down on the right is in the boat. He sees the little island. And he says land. They highlight the different points of view that we go through or have on political issues, on candidates, and a variety of other things. Back to this, I'm going to be putting this in Google Classroom. You can take a look at this clip if you like. So, as we're bombarded with media coverage of elections, we have to make sure that we take a few steps in order not to get tricked. We likes to employ different strategies to help sway us in one way or another towards a candidate. So here we're going to look at strategies for evaluating campaigns. When I say campaigns, I mean speeches, literature, advertisements. This is basically what you should do when you are presented with this information in order not to be kind of swayed one way or the other. So you're aware of what they're trying to do. First step is to separate fact from opinion. Facts can be proven with evidence that can be checked. Opinions are the views of individuals or groups. Here's a little bit of practice. Feel free to pause these and read them and try to figure it out. I'm going to go over the answers in a moment. So when you're separating fact from opinion, usually keywords like perhaps the most successful, meaning that highest in the world, that's usually an exaggeration. This one provides facts. Approval rating has plummeted, falling to the mid to low 40s. That's a fact. Look at this last one. You can tell this is an opinion. This is the most talented. Again, there's keywords in separating facts from opinions. So the second strategy to employ is to evaluate the sources of news. Some sources of information are more reliable than others. You want to check to find out how trustworthy your news sources are. For instance, CNN, Fox News, much more reliable as a news source than what we would call The Onion, which is a satire website that publishes fake news stories. Also, we have social media on there because not everything on social media is accurate. Oftentimes, there are fake news stories published on social media in order to kind of trick you. Here are some other examples of some news sources that might not be too credible. Here's The Onion again. You also want to detect bias. And bias is consistently favoring one side of an issue while ignoring the facts that support the other side. We see bias quite a bit in our news media, and it's important to be able to identify it so you're not being swayed one way or the other without you knowing. Here's an example. This is clearly biased. This one will be biased against Republicans. Take a look at this one. This one is biased against Democrats. This one's biased against the media. The last thing you want to do is identify what we call propaganda. You may remember this from last year, talking about World War I and how propaganda was used in order to encourage young men to sign up for the military. Propaganda is used in many different ways, and there are many different styles of propaganda that are employed in a lot of our advertisements, not just for politics. They use them in ads for products as well, in order to help you feel a certain way. Propaganda is information created to persuade people. We see this a lot in our marketing and advertising campaigns. So essentially, commercials. They use this to make you feel and to persuade you to buy their product or to feel a specific way. Let's take a look at some of the strategies. So here's an overview of the ones we're going to talk about. Later on, you're going to be looking at an activity where you're going to try to identify these in some campaign ads. The first one we're going to talk about is bandwagon. Now I have join the crowd, everyone is doing it. When they have a bandwagon, they make it sound like everybody is joining up with that person. You want to be a part of that too. You don't want to be an outsider. So come on, everybody, join the crowd. The next one is stacked cards, or card stacking. That's where, in an advertisement, they arrange facts quickly in order to prove or disprove something. It can also work on the negative side. They could use facts to be negative about somebody or something. That's when they rapid fire. The next one is transfer. Transfer is when they are transferring an emotional feeling to you, brought about by a symbol, a person, maybe a scene, to you. So when they show you something nice, you feel nice. For instance, the hamburger commercial, they're showing you a nice juicy hamburger. They're transferring that to you through that advertisement. They're very strategic with it. Glittering generality is just a broad word or phrase. It's valued by a group. Think of the Nike slogan, just do it. Does it really have any meaning? It doesn't. I see a lot of you guys wear their shirts. So glittering generalities are used quite a bit. Think of Obama's campaign, hope, change. Those were bold words that had really nothing behind it. It had value to the group of supporters for that candidate when he was campaigning. The next one is name calling. Name calling is a very interesting one that is used quite often. This is where they use unpopular terms to create prejudice. Essentially, this is where we see attack ads. Candidates attack the other candidate based on policies they have or things that they've done. Create that, again, that prejudice feeling. This is probably the most widely used style of propaganda. We have our last two. Just plain folks. Plain folks strategy is when they try to make a candidate or somebody appear average or like anybody else. So think of, some of these candidates, they have them, no tie on, out doing stuff with people. They're making them try to appear as if they're just like an everyday average person. In reality, most of the times, as we're going to learn in the next lesson, a lot of these people are very independently wealthy. They're very different from just your average person in America. But in order to gain the votes, they make them seem like they are just like everybody else. And the last one's pretty universal, is endorsement. And endorsements, when they get a person that's famous to support a cause. So you might have a famous person support a candidate. You see this kind of thing all the time. Just recently saw 50 Cent, the rapper, and Lil Pump support Donald Trump for presidency. Interesting. So this is when celebrities endorse something. You see this happen all the time with advertisements or products. So this one also is very widely used. Famous people with a following support somebody, more than likely their followers are going to also support that cause. That's the strategy that they're trying to do. Okay. So feel free to look through the slides in Google Classroom after this to see some extensions with propaganda. There's all sorts of different types. You can identify propaganda styles. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Up next, you're going to do a Nearpod.